This video will explain to you some of the important parts of the lab reports and where to find them, as this is something that some students struggle with right away. I want to make sure that you understand exactly what we're looking for. So from the course homepage, everything that you need for the labs is underneath of lab assignments. And so there are explanations here. Some of the more important things I want to point out is that the file has to be saved as a docx or a PDF, and that PDF file is usually what works best. It has to be under 20 megabytes in order to be submitted to Dropbox properly. Okay. Dropbox you'll find up here in the top corner. And when you click on Dropbox, you'll see each lab is here. And this is my version, obviously, but yours will have an ability to upload your files. All right, so if we go back to lab assignments, just so you can see a couple of other things. You'll know this already from reading the beginning parts of the course, but you have to buy your own lab kit, and you will have to show proof of purchase. You are welcome to perform your lab experiments with other students, but you must use your kit, your experiments, take pictures of your own results. They cannot be identical to your partners, and you have to write and submit your own lab report. You have to have pictures in it, pictures that you took of your own results. Okay, pictures from the internet will not count, and pictures from another student will not count. Reports will be given a 0 if you do not include the proper pictures. All right, so back to format, because that's what I really wanted to show you. Under here is the lab manual, but you got that in your kit, okay, and the student lab safety agreement, which you should have already done the quiz on. Here, this is a very important document, this format for lab reports. This is essentially your rubric, which tells you exactly what should be in each section of your report. Okay, so I'm going to go through it. I'm going to show you an example of a report that has the required elements in it. Okay, and then you can find that yourself underneath of doc sharing and then underneath of lab documents. And let me show you that really quickly. Underneath of lab documents, you'll see lab report 5 example. That is an example lab report. There's also some microscope tips, that lab safety agreement in the manual, and then also under bibliography, these ones that are tagged with websites for labs, you'll find Berge's manual. That will give you a lot of the expected results you're looking for. And then there's some videos and websites on how to use your smartphone to take pictures through the microscope, or how to use a digital camera to take pictures through the microscope, because sometimes students struggle with that as well. All right, so back to taking forever. Back to the lab report format. And actually, let me mention this too. Every lab, there's a little description of what you have to do. It's marked underneath of pre-experiment whether you need to do something ahead of time. The required pictures are listed. If there are any changes to the procedures, they're listed. Sometimes there's a little explanation video for how to do something, and then the questions you have to answer are listed. And that's for every week or every lab that you have to do. All right, so back to lab report format. The first thing that should be on your lab report is the title page. The title of the lab, your name, the course name, then the report's due date. And so you should see that. I have a file. So here's one student's front page, title page, the title of the lab, the student's name, the course, and then the due date would go here. All right, so the next thing is the abstract. And the abstract is something that you're probably going to want to write last, okay, because the abstract is essentially the purpose statement, okay, and you have to write that too, which is a brief statement about what the experiment is supposed to show about microbiology. But the abstract also very importantly summarizes your actual experimental results, and you're not going to have that until you're done. So I just want to show you this. Here's her abstract, which says, the purpose of the experiment was to perform differential staining. Also note that the bacteria names have been put into italics. They must be in italics or underlined. That's the proper way to write bacterial names to determine if they're gram-positive or negative. So that's the purpose. And then her actual results, the results of the staining, indicated that L. acidophilus and S. epidermidis are gram-positive, while E. coli is gram-negative. She gives a little explanation about why. This is very important in your abstract, the purpose statement and the summary of your actual results. And then again, here's the purpose statement below to determine whether a bacteria is gram-positive or negative based on the differential staining. The next part is the procedure. That should summarize what you did, performing the exercise step by step in your own words. Don't just copy it right out of the lab manual, okay? And it should also be written so that someone reading it can reproduce the experiment. So you don't want to be too vague about it. And something else to mention while we're going, it's down here. But lab reports are written in your best formal English using complete sentences, paragraphs, and correct spelling and punctuation. Lab reports should not be written in first person, and this gets a lot of people. No I, me, we, us, you. You're not going to say, I incubated the bacterial culture. You're going to say the bacterial culture was incubated. So double check your lab reports and make sure you're not writing in first person. No I, me, we in that. And so you'll note in this lab report that there's no I, me, we. Gathered materials needed, clean lab space, streaked from previous experiment, using aseptic technique, prepared for culture. So notice absolutely no I, me, we. All right, so here's the explanation. And then the next part is the data and the observations. You're going to put the pictures that are required here, and the pictures must be labeled with the organism and the magnification, if there was a stain, if there was a test, and then you're going to include very detailed observations of what happened to get you to that picture using the proper morphological terms. And so if we go back here, you can see here is L. acidophilus at a 40 magnification, and we can see that this, here's the explanation or the observation. Cells appear cockeye in shape and in a chain formation, mainly purple, at 100x, not as round as previously appeared. All right, so note that there's a identification of the picture, and then there's an explanation of what is occurring or what you're seeing in that part of the experiment. And that's very important. You can't just include your pictures. You can't just include the data. You have to include both and make sure that you're including very detailed observations of what you're seeing. Also be careful when you take the picture that it's clear. We need to be able to see exactly what you've done. I need to see the test tubes or the petri dishes. Sometimes it helps to put them against a dark background. Don't just hold them up in the air because that makes it really hard to see. And then verify that your results are viewable in that picture before you insert it in your lab report. And the pictures have to be inserted in the lab report in the data section. You can't attach them separately. The results and analysis section is where the questions from the lab manual go. Okay, so make sure that you put those in. Here's the results and analysis section. And notice that each one of these sections is labeled clearly. Okay, and then you want to make sure you can find all of these answers in your lab book. Okay. You don't need to go searching for them elsewhere. All right, and then the end, your conclusion. Your conclusion should be based on what happened during the lab. Did the results match the expected results? And you can find expected results in Berge's manual. A correct response is not, I learned a lot, or I really like this lab. Okay, you want to discuss your results, places where there could have been errors if it didn't work, and the agreement of your results with other documented results. And be careful in that section not to write in first person either. Okay, so let's go back and look at that explained one. All right, and then so here we're explaining what was done. No growth was detected, so we went back and changed it and did something different. So they don't think that their culture is pure, might have enacted or might have gotten inaccurate results from it. So you want to explain what happened and whether there's any sources of error there. Okay, so again, don't forget to write in third person. You have to submit your own lab report in your own words. You submit it to a software system that checks for plagiarism from the internet and from other students. Okay, so if two students submit extremely identical lab reports, neither student will get a grade for that report. Likewise, if your report is extremely similar to something off the internet, you will not get a grade, or it will not be graded. You'll get a 0. But then again, the lab reports need to be submitted. Most likely, the best submission is a docx or a PDF, because that's going to give you the smallest file size. And then make sure you label your file as last name and then lab report 1, 2, 3. Again, make sure it's smaller than 20 megabytes. Don't submit your photos. Don't submit photos you didn't personally take of your own results. Write your report in your own words and follow the safety precautions listed in the manual. I'm going to go back to, I want to show you this one just because here they were very clear to say that the results were consistent. with expected results. And then also one more I wanted to show you. Your data can also be put in tables. This makes it very easy to see. So here's the specimen. It's a cheek smear. Here's the 40x, here's the 100x, and there is the detailed observation of it. So that makes it very easy to see and to keep things together. All right, so make sure that you read this and that you follow this very carefully when you're writing your lab reports. Make sure that you look at this menu at the lab before you do it in case there's something that has changed, right? And then you can also, again, go to the bibliography for those websites with explanations and into doc sharing for that example lab report that I've been showing you. And always, if you have questions about it, please email and ask me before you submit the report.